I am definitely inspired by nature, and I've been working with this series lately with Willow and stone. So I have these beautiful stones from Lake Champlain and a piece of willow, and I used my koi watercolor set to kind of match the colors to see if I could recreate willow and stone. And then I wanted to transfer that to acrylic because I love to paint in acrylics. And I came up with what I'm using to create the colors for the stone, which really ended up being the Payne's gray and titanium white. And then I used colors to create the colors of the willow bark. And the first ones I made were they didn't have as much pink. So I did a series of these and I ended up using a lot of I went more towards purple. And I love them. I think these have a little more stone. And then I actually made one very light that has kind of no willow in it and is just sort of stone. But see the difference? That like delicious red color that I got the darkness of the willow bark in those paintings, but I really like that red. And today when I was driving, it was like, oh my gosh, just this delicious cranberry color, and it inspired me to come back and redo these. So we're going to make these little guys here. Those are MDF panels that I glue the paper onto when I'm done. And I just want to do it again and try to have a little bit more brown. Okay, I'm going to use, I really like that kind of burnt sienna. So I have burnt sienna, some burnt umber, Payne's gray, Titan buff, which is a kind of an creamy off-white, and then titanium white. My favorite. I feel like titanium white is like cheese and circles. You just can't have enough cheese on food or circles in art. So now my goal is to stick to this palette. My burnt sienna it's a little old. I need to get a new tube of it, but I am going to mix it with some matte medium here and use it anyways. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I do when I have some old paint it's not quite, it can still be used, it just needs a little help. So I add some medium to it and I'll use it. And I am working with watercolor paper. So I really do love to work with paper, and I actually like working with acrylics on watercolor paper. I'm not gessoing it or anything. I'm just gonna put acrylics straight onto it. I think I wrote sing there. I was singing all day today, and I was just kind of making marks, but it looked like the word sing. I have a really old crappy brush that I love, and the first step is just to get paint on the paper. And I always tell my students, especially like beginner students, that is the hardest part, is getting the paint on the paper. I'm not cleaning my brush. I am just dipping it right back into the paint. I'm mixing kind of right on the paper, and I'm not thinking about anything except just playing and having fun and using that scrubbly little brush there to just mix all that paint in and making sure I get all the colors of my palette on here. I want some darks and some lights, but I'm really just playing and I'm going to fill the whole paper in. I'm going to speed this up for you guys. So I'm filling everything in, like I said. I'm using that scrubbly brush. That's what I call it, my old one. Now I just grabbed a different brush so I can make different marks with that. And then I grabbed another brush. So I'm just changing brushes, but I'm not cleaning my paintbrush at all before dipping it back into the paint. And now I have an even smaller brush that I'm making some different lines with. Right now, I just want to check. Am I right? Am I on the right track here? What other inspiration can I take from that willow and stone? The stone has these beautiful lines in it. How about I try maybe to recreate some of those patterns, line patterns in the stone, as does the willow, has different patterns in it too. So at this point, I am brightening. So maybe there's some spots that I want to lighten up or brighten up. They don't have enough paint, or they could use a little more contrast. That first part was all fun. Now I'm taking a step back and seeing, what did I make? And where can I put more paint? What can I add? What do I maybe want to take away? And how about making some, maybe making some different colors. These colors mixed together make a gorgeous gray. So I'm just going to continue to layer the paint on, bringing things out, hiding some pieces I don't like, and putting a little bit more thought into my, I guess what I would call it is responding, because like, what am I thinking? How? Why am I doing this? So what would make me do that? Sometimes I look at the paper and there's just not enough paint. Other times I'll make a color that I really love and I want to see more of it. Or right now I might want to brighten that. That's that Titan Buff, which is can be a really gorgeous color. So I want to add paint and brighten things up, clean things up a little bit. Make some crisp lines too. And experiment with my grays that I can make here. Because those like delicious grays can make the Payne's gray blue pop, or that burnt sienna red pop. So it's nice to have some of these neutral grays in there. I'm going to speed this up for us. Altogether, this is probably 15-20 minutes of painting that I have sped up to 2 minutes. Let me know if you want it to be longer. I love watching people paint, and I really myself like these videos where people are painting and I can watch them paint something in a short amount of time that I knew took a lot longer. So I am just layering, and then I'm starting to dig in. I just looked at my rock there, and that rock has stripes all over it. I want to bring that into my work. I want to paint over these dark colors and then create these lines. I used an X-Acto knife. I used my palette knife. So I laid the paint down thick on top of another color, and while it's still wet, that's the key, while it's still wet, I'm dragging my palette knife through. And then it shows the color underneath and creates these spindles, these lines of different colors, and it adds depth, and it just looks beautiful. It adds texture, interest. So I'm doing this in a few different places, and I just keep on adding more paint, making things darker, making things lighter, and then also using a palette knife or an X-Acto knife. Now I came in with this really tiny brush and made these white lines to kind of copy the stripes on the stones. And I also looked at that birch, or I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with birch too, but I looked at the willow, and the willow has these like little dots and lines. It has its own pattern on there that I am using. So I made these cutouts using the MDF panels, and then I created these little viewfinders so I can check it out and see I'm just looking right now, like, what do I have? Do I need to add anything? I have different sizes, so I can come in and kind of see what some would look like at each different size. And then I'm also checking to see, am I doing what my goal was, what I set out to do? Do I have that? Does this work look inspired by this willow and stone? So I'm kind of checking in, and it did. So I'm good with it. I'm not going to add anything else. I use an X-Acto knife to remove the watercolor paper from the pad. I have been drying these with a blow dryer that you actually don't see, so that the paper is really dry. And now that's how I remove it from the pad, is using an X-Acto knife. And I have a ton of paint left. Not a ton, but I have a bunch of paint left, and I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to use up all my extra paint and put it on this paper and save it for tomorrow. And tomorrow I can come back in and make something out of it. Okay, so I have a bigger MDF panel that's an 8x8. So I'm just checking this out. I have my cutouts, and there we go. That's the size of this one. So I just want to see what that would look like if I did an 8x8. That is a beauty. I do love it. Sometimes the compositions work out beautiful. That one might, I don't know, there's something that might be happening in the center that I'm not too crazy about. So I'm going to grab my other sizes. I have 2 other sizes that I can look. And you just move these little viewfinders around your painting till you find something that floats your boat. And then you use a pencil to outline it, a ruler and an X-Acto knife to cut it. I always cut it a little bit bigger and then put it on, then I glue it onto my MDF panel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you make your own nature-inspired art this week.